Okay, so I think we can start. So hello everyone, welcome on episode 26 of Warsaw Quantum Computing Group meetups. Today we have a fantastic guest from Creative Destruction Lab, Sam Kearney. He will tell us about Creative Destruction Lab, about quantum computing, commercialization and entrepreneurship. So as usually, you'll have opportunity to ask your questions. So if you have any questions, you can post them during the lecture on our chat, and later at the end, there will be a Q&A session. This meeting is recorded, but this time the video will be available only to people who participated or registered, so it will not be publicly available. Yeah, but anyway, since you've joined, then you will have access to the recording as well. All right, so before we start, I would also like to thank our strategic partners, so Snarto and Codec, who support our meetups, and our honorary patrons who also help us in just advertising our meetings. And I think that we can start the main talk. So Sam, if you are ready, the Zoom is yours. So I will just stop sharing my screen.
Perfect. Sounds good. I'll just start sharing here and we'll get going. All right. Great. Everybody can see all right?
Yeah, we can see your screen now.
Okay, perfect. So, yep, as Powell said, I'm Sam. So currently reaching you guys from Toronto, Canada, and I'm a venture manager at CDL Toronto on their quantum stream. Yeah, really happy to be here today, talking to the Polish and some of the European quantum community, and going to be speaking about quantum commercialization, and then what Creative Destruction Lab does to enable entrepreneurs both in and outside of the quantum space. So before I get into what we do for quantum startups specifically, I just want to get into CDL at a more broad level and how we help startups more generally. So first of all, like if you're thinking about why CDL actually got started and what it does, it's useful to think about this. So why does it seem to be so much more difficult to have a venture that's successful outside of Silicon Valley? I mean, if you had a map in the world and you were looking to plot places where deep tech startups are actually getting venture capital, San Francisco would be entirely covered in dots, and you'd see maybe a couple other clusters scattered throughout the world. But why is this? I mean, if you're thinking about it, is it just because they have that many more better ideas, that much more money, or that much of a stronger work ethic? I mean, when you really start to think about it, there are a lot of places in the world that when you look at them, they have a lot of capital, they have great ideas, and they have good work ethic, but they're not necessarily seeing that same level of startup success. So at CDL, we're thinking that it's probably not any of these three variables that's really limiting people's success, but we think it's a failure in the market to provide what we call business judgment. So what I mean by business judgment is this. Say you and me, we're about to start a venture today. There would be 100 different things that we could be doing. So we could be doing sales, or we could be doing research in the lab, and the list goes on of things we could be doing. But if we choose the wrong thing at the wrong time, then our venture can fail, we can lose money, and ultimately we just won't be successful. So when we're choosing our mentors for a program, we're making sure that they have that business judgment, either by running businesses themselves or by being venture capitalists or angel investors. And the ability to be able to choose and prioritize between those different tasks is that business judgment. So this failure in the market is why we created CDL. So we're an early stage program for science and tech-based startups that are massively scalable. So they have a potential to really grow and expand across the world. And we don't charge any fees or take any equity from anybody who goes through our program in any capacity, because we know that people who are starting ventures, every single dollar you have is going to need to go to things in your business. So taking any money from you then is probably just going to make your business a lot harder to get off the ground. So what we're offering is an objectives-based mentorship process. And we do that by creating that marketplace for business judgment. So when we're selecting mentors, as I said, we're making sure that they have that business judgment, either by running businesses themselves or by working around startups all the time. So they're either venture capitalists or angel investors. And if you were coming through the program with a company, you'd be brought together with these different mentors in order to form that marketplace for business judgment. And there'd be 5 different sessions that happen every 2 months. And the purpose of those different events is to set the best objectives possible for your company and to make sure that as you're going through the program, you're as equipped as possible to actually meet those objectives and succeed with your venture. So the way that actually looks like is as follows. So before your first session, you'd be working with someone from the CDL staff. So someone like myself or another venture manager. And you'd be setting a preliminary set of objectives of what you think the best things for your company are over the next 2 months. So they could be business objectives or they could be science objectives, as long as we think it's the most impactful thing for you to be doing and we think it's achievable in that time span. But then we want to actually get some feedback from this group of mentors we've assembled. So that's what happens at the sessions. So during the first half of the day, you're having small group meetings with different groups of experts. So your first conversation could be with a group of venture capitalists, and then it could be with a group of entrepreneurs. And after that, it could be a group of scientists, which I'll be touching on later. And in every one of these conversations, they're going to be talking about your unique situation with your venture and giving you feedback on what you're going through and the objectives that you set for yourself. So here you can see Dan Dibbo, the VP of Commercial for Shopify, and Michael Sarabinis, the co-founder of Kobo, working with founders to work through their problems and to help them set objectives. So then in the afternoon, all of the mentors come together for large room discussions. And the reason for that is as follows. So, if you put yourself in the shoes of a founder, you've just had conversations with people with vastly different backgrounds, and they all have their own opinions. Often they're very opinionated people, and it's not always clear exactly what the best course of action to be doing after those small group discussions are. So what we're doing at the end of the day with this large room discussion is bringing all of their mentors together in order to debate and discuss over your company's problems in order to give you a consensus as to what they think you should be doing over the next 2 months. So that way, when you're going through the program, you have to worry a lot less about figuring out what it is you should be doing, and you can spend more time figuring out how you and your team can actually do those things. So when people are going through CDL, we find we get a lot of different benefits that people say they're getting, but here are the 3 most prominent that come up. So first, you're getting invaluable peer-reviewed advice from a curated set of experts on how to build your business at the earliest of stages possible. Now, the second is that while you're going through the program, whether it's as an individual or in the company, you're building relationships with mentors in our network. And these mentors are getting to know you, they're getting to see you actually execute on the objectives that you're setting. And because of that, they're building trust. So from their perspective, this de-risks potential investments in your company. And because of this, we see them actually investing in people going through the program all the time. And lastly, while this might not sound like a benefit at the onset, we do cut companies through the program through a triage process. So at the end of each session, the mentors are asked, raise your hand if you want to spend time with this company one-on-one over the next 2 months before the next session. If no mentors raise their hand, then that venture's cut from the program. So, but what this means is that if you're in the program and your company is doing well, as time goes on, you're progressively spending more and more time with the mentors who can help you the most. So one thing that I wanted to highlight is that we're not just in Toronto. We have CDL sites across the world. After starting in 2012 at the University of Toronto, we've spread to 9 different sites across North America and Europe. So every year, CDL as a broad program, we get over 2,000 companies applying. Of those, around 500 actually make it in, and 200 of those accepted actually graduate. Now, since its founding in 2012, we've created around $7.5 billion in equity value in US. So each of our 9 sites is affiliated with their local business schools, and they host different companies sorted by streams, and their categories either by industry, like health and space, or by technology, like AI and quantum. So that brings us to the topic that will be most interesting and relevant to everybody here today. I've just spoken about the broader program. Now I want to get into what CDL does for quantum companies as well as individuals at our quantum stream in Toronto. So we started the program in 2017, knowing that quantum technologies have a really large and sort of undetermined potential to impact the world. And that realization of the technology's potential can be amplified by entrepreneurial innovation. So since then, we've helped over 80 quantum startups, and those startups have raised over $100 million in equity. Now, every year, our stream is made up of around 20 early stage startups. And while we initially only accepted software startups, our programs expanded to accept hardware over time. So after engaging with so many different quantum entrepreneurs, we found that there are three primary barriers that people face in this space that they might not face as much in others. So the first is constrained access to quantum infrastructure. The second is a lack of access to industry expertise. And the third is limited exposure to quantum specific expertise. So what I'm going to be doing now is going through each of these and highlighting how CDL looks to address them for people going through the program. So first, getting full access to quantum tech isn't always easy. And even if you can get access, it can be quite costly. So in order to address this, we have 5 different tech partners that we work with in order to support people going through the program. So we provide unlimited access to D-Wave, IBM-Q, Rigetti, Xanadu, and Zapata. And one thing I wanted to note here is that Xanadu is actually a early member or went through the program of CDL during one of our first years. And after they've grown so rapidly, they've become a tech partner, which we love to see. So if you're going through the program, whether it's as a company or as an individual in the boot camp, which I'm going to get to, you get unlimited free access to all of these different platforms. So another barrier that we're trying to address is a lack of access to quantum industry experts. So as you may know, there aren't that many people in the world who would be considered experts in quantum areas, quantum technologies, let alone people who would be experts at commercializing quantum tech. So if you're trying to start a venture, it can be really difficult for you to get advice that's actually relevant to you in what you're trying to build. So at CDL, you'd be interacting with people who have skin in the game, and they check both of these boxes. So they're quantum experts in their field, and they're either entrepreneurs or investors. And they'll be debating and discussing over what you're uniquely going through and spending one-on-one time with you in between sessions. So I want to know that these people, they're not necessarily just investing in your company and giving you advice. One thing that we find really useful for people going through the program is introductions. So say these can really help you get a pilot for your technology, or let you explore if an area is actually right for you to start a venture in. And so say you're looking to explore the finance space, oftentimes mentors will be easily able to get you a conversation with somebody at, say, a wealth management firm or a bank. Now, to highlight a few of our mentors here, we've got Christoph Jerzak, who's a managing partner of Quanta Nation, Alan Baratz, the CEO of D-Wave, Andrew Firstman, founder of 1Qubit, and Michael Helander, the president and CEO of OTI Lumiotics. So one thing about Michael is that he actually graduated from the first year that CDL ran, and after his company's grown quite a bit, he's come back as a mentor. So the last thing that I wanted to speak about is that we actually have some of the world's best experts in different areas of quantum technology acting as our chief scientists. And they're a huge asset to our founders, I'd say more than almost any other stream, because the area of the field is so new and the talent pool can be so small. So if you're going through the program, these people will be helping you with your deliver your tech roadmap, as well as being able to communicate what it is you're doing in the lab and why that's important to people who might be less technically literate in the room. Now, even after you graduate, because you're developing a strong relationship with some of these scientists, we find that they actually continue to help their founders often after they've even graduated from the program. So I know a lot of you might be thinking this, why is this guy from Canada just speaking to us about companies when he knows that we don't have one? Well, quantum technology is a young field, so we try to facilitate quantum entrepreneurship through our bootcamp. So this is where we don't just accept companies, but also individuals who've either experienced from what they're doing in academia or in industry. So often people who are coming in, I want to stress this a lot, people coming in often don't have a specific business idea that they're working on when they get accepted to the program. But often many people from companies often people form companies during the bootcamp, and many of those companies formed in the bootcamp go on to participate in the broader program that I was speaking about earlier. So the 4-week bootcamp in Toronto is where it usually takes place. This year, it's entirely virtual. It takes place every summer in July before our next cohort actually starts. So those who are accepted in the program, you get hands-on tech training from all of those different tech partners that I mentioned, as well as learning from top academics and entrepreneurs about different areas that are useful to you as a quantum entrepreneur. So for example, you get to learn about different verticals and what's relevant for quantum commercialization for each of those. And what I mean by that is like this. So say you were interested in learning about quantum chemistry or quantum and finance. That day you get to choose between those, or security and logistics. And you'd be able to hear from people in those spaces about what they're doing and what the opportunities are in those different markets, as well as the different competitive landscape. And you'll be getting entrepreneurship training on the skills that you'd need in order to start a quantum venture. Now, during the bootcamp, we're also hosting activities where you get to meet the other participants who have been accepted into the program, and you get to test your chemistry with people in order to see if you might want to start a venture with them. So that's why we have events like our multi-hardware hackathon and our cohort project, which lets you see if you want to work with other people and decide if you want to form a company. So we find that every year, around 3 to 6 brand new startups are actually formed during the bootcamp. So what I'm going to do now is go through some of our notable alumni from each cohort. And most of the ones here that you see were actually formed during the bootcamp itself. One other thing that I want you to keep an eye on is that there's a wide variety of issues being addressed here. And that's one of the trends that we're noticing is amplifying every single year as quantum technologies are progressing. So you're seeing, applications in finance, machine learning, and material simulation. And every year we're seeing that broaden even more. So in our first year, we had companies like Protein Cure with its drug design solutions and Solid State AI in manufacturing optimization. Now in year 2, we got attention from other parts of the world, and this is when we really started ramping up how many international companies we accepted. So for instance, we had Bait with its Polish founders, we had Agnostic with its Turkish founder, which uses quantum processors securely over the cloud, and Menton AI from San Francisco producing custom enzymes. They just raised $4 million actually through Costly Ventures, which is a little piece of news that I thought I'd include. So in our third year is when we really broadened our scope in order to accept hardware companies into the programs. This is a really big pivot. So we started to see companies that were working with QKD, sensing, and QC hardware. So for instance, we had companies like SB Quantum building diamond-based magnetometers, and Multiverse using quantum software in the finance space. And lastly, we also had Orca Computing building a photonics-based quantum computer. So this brings me to our fourth year, which we're currently going through. And we're seeing a lot more pre-existing companies coming into the program, which we view as a really positive trend. Because if we're seeing more pre-formed companies applying, then it means that the startup ecosystem is starting to really mature in a way that it wasn't when we first started the program. And we see that every year where there's sort of a different trend in the different companies that we're actually seeing going through and who we see applying and interviewing to the program. So for instance, this year, we're seeing a lot more companies focusing on communications and cybersecurity. And this year's incoming cohort, we haven't quite decided on yet, but we're seeing a really diverse array with, I'd say, a focus more on sensing, as well as we're seeing some interesting companies working around different softwares for QC hardware development and a whole host of other applications. So where does this leave us? So the startup ecosystem in the quantum area is starting to grow. It's finally getting its legs for walking. And I hope that many of you are going to go on to accelerate the quantum technologies development, whether it's in a startup or through research, whatever you so choose. And what does this mean for you? Well, if you're a team or you're an individual and you're actually looking to start a company or even to break into quantum industry, I'd invite you to apply to CDL's next round of applications, which is going to close in May. Now, otherwise, if you're not necessarily fully ready to apply or anything like that, but you're interested in what we're doing and maybe in staying in touch and seeing what's going on with CDL, I'd invite you to fill out this. It's a very short form through the Bitly link, and that way we can be in touch with sort of the different things that we're offering the global community going forward. Now, other than that, thank you guys so much. I appreciate everybody coming out on a lovely evening. And now I'm happy to take some questions.
All right. Thank you very much, Sam. Thanks for a great presentation. Currently, I don't see any questions on chat, but I have some questions actually. So let me start. All right. So I understand that, as you said, everyone can just apply, even individually, right? So one even doesn't need to have a startup, but is it necessary to have a business idea already for a startup, or what are the criteria of the qualification to this program?
Sure. Yeah, I'll answer that right now. So the question is, do you need a business idea and what are the criteria? I would say I know my colleague Jake Malieros might be in the waiting room, just by the way, just for the Q&A. But
Right.
okay, so on that note, no, you don't need a business idea in order to get in. We find that we get people all the way from postdoc researchers to tenured professors, even sometimes people who have graduated with a master's degree in something related to quantum tech. And really what we're looking for is, first of all, that technical competence, that interest in quantum, and then that interest and openness to exploring commercialization. So if someone doesn't have a business idea, then that would be sort of the key elements that we'd be looking for. We do also accept people that don't necessarily have a strong quantum background as one small portion of the people that we let in the boot camp. And these people are domain experts. So they're people who have maybe 10 plus years or a wealth of experience in an industry that's related to quantum, and they're looking to explore how they can apply that to quantum in a venture. But long story short, no, you don't need a business idea to be fully formed. And the criteria we look for in individuals is primarily having that quantum expertise and having that interest in exploring entrepreneurship and commercialization.
Okay, great. Um, yeah, there is a question from Shemek. Could you say a few words about how quantum tech-related startups are tend to be successful in comparison to other startups?
Sure. Yeah, here 1 second. I think I just quickly want to make sure that
Okay.
my colleague is able to join us. If I could just have
Okay.
1 second. My
Yeah,
apologies.
so from time to time I accept some new people joining. So currently we have 20 participants, but
Oh,
I don't see.
here, 1 moment here. Sorry about that.
Okay, yes.
Okay, perfect. He should be joining shortly. But okay, so how do they necessarily compare to other startups? Well, I would say that as far, it really depends on the industry that they're exploring. So I would say that as far as companies that can find applications in the near term to get them to their long-term vision. So one example of what I mean by that is, say you have a company that's doing quantum sensing. That might be a little bit more applicable in the near term than certain QC hardware applications. But people often have, with their company, they might have a longer term vision that will be enabled as quantum technologies continue to progress. But they have interim things that they're doing with their business to provide value that they can be able to. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, let's see here. As far as what's sharing, my apologies here. Okay, so yeah, as far and then just what I would say then is about being able to provide interim value before you necessarily have a longer term vision. For instance, another example is we have a company that is developing a quantum repeater, and they're looking to provide things in the interim. So that's one thing that I do find sort of enables success for ventures that way. Also, Jake, do you have any other comments on that as far as how you're seeing quantum tech startups really enable success in comparison to other types of startups? Like what are some sort of different factors that lead to them having success? And by the way, everybody, my apologies for that. I had sent the wrong Zoom link to my colleagues, so a little bit of a goof on my parts, but my apologies there. So Jake, you take it away.
Yeah, no worries, Sam, and no, thanks for doing the intro here. So yeah, I think what we're starting to see more and more is this idea of these variational quantum algorithms being used in many ways that we didn't expect them to be very useful. Obviously, chemistry is a big place that they're being used, but we're also now seeing them in areas that we didn't expect, even like say in the factoring world, in cybersecurity, and in finance, and in many other ways in the optimization space. And of course in machine learning. So a lot of the ventures that we've seen kind of go through, especially our boot camp and many other pieces, they're getting direct hands-on access to some of these state-of-the-art hardwares with a lot of these NISQ era algorithms and techniques, really testing the waters for their particular domain. And we've really seen a variety. So we had even one, kind of explore this in the mining space, actually. And they had done it for generative models, kind of exploring where they could generate where the mines were based on data they could get from drilling different boreholes at a mine site. This gave them tremendous results, and they were actually able to sell to some large mining industry stakeholders in kind of building these kind of hybridized models of this machine learning generative world with this generative world that we're starting to see emerge in the quantum space. So that's just one example, but we're really starting to see a wide variety of ways the NISC era is actually being more leveraged than we initially expected.
Last thing that I'd say on this is, as far as, so say you're interested in quantum hardware, you're interested in making a QC architecture. The thing that I think really tends to have success there is being able to find investors that are open to, that are suitable for what you're doing. You need to have understanding investors that with long timelines in order to be able to fund that massive amount of research that is going to be going into your venture. Because if you go for classical, like people who are just regular general investors who don't know about quantum at all and who aren't interested in as much, they won't be able to understand the timeline of 10 plus years, 8+ years for what you're working on. So hopefully that answers your question. Does that answer your question? Could you maybe give me a thumbs up or something in the Zoom chat if it has, or if you want to follow up, by all means.
Okay, since we have only about 20 participants, then if you want, you can also unmute yourself to ask a question. Maybe that will be even easier. But yeah, Przemek just said thank you for answering, so I guess that he's satisfied. There is another question from Jędrzej. Hi Sam, thanks for a nice presentation. Given that you must have interacted with plenty of quantum tech ideas, how long will it take until we have a useful product in quantum tech or any kind?
So I'll let Jake answer this as well, but for me, what I think is that it really depends on what it is that we're talking about here as far as the application. So if I'm looking at the one that comes to mind as far as what's really near term is sensing. I see sensing being, I think I could be wrong, but I believe there's already value being provided in sensing at this point in a variety of applications, like currently in commercial settings. And then, I mean, also quantum in chemistry is starting to be useful on the more near horizon. But as far as, there are definitely some applications that will require, large numbers of logical qubits that'll be a longer timeline. But right now there are different applications that are currently providing value. Jake, I'll let you sort of touch on that a bit more. Another one that comes to mind is multiverse computing, which is they're doing great work for finance for banks in Spain right now, and they seem to be providing value. At least they're getting partnerships with big companies. So I'd like let Jake take it from here though.
Yeah, so no, I think you answered the first part. I definitely agree with, for example, I think sensing right now is one of the most immediate we're seeing. We've seen people provide value now. We're seeing military is getting very interested because they're able to sense things they couldn't detect and apply to certain technologies. But even just in general for metrology, we're seeing a lot of value there. I mean, a lot of this technology, a lot of it was discovered. Even the science and theory was discovered decades ago. So now they're really just starting to see it come into fruition. When it comes to communication and computation, I think it's a little bit more on the horizon. We're seeing within the next 5 years, we're really starting to see a lot of movement. We obviously have some investment in the NISC type of style of computing, and many people are building kind of these hybridized solutions where they've got quantum technologies in the underlying core and a lot of classical technology around it in order to kind of scale and be prepared as the hardware becomes more accessible and ready to use. That being said, we're also seeing the communication world where they're actually building solutions that are very easy to integrate into existing infrastructure. And in fact, we actually have, I think, 6 quantum communication companies in our current cohort where they're building kind of integratable pieces into these potential QKD lines of the future. And obviously, we've already seen some globally from various players where they've demonstrated this over satellite technologies and other pieces. So it is all very coming quicker than we expected. In terms of building a product that is very useful, it really depends on if you're able to get to that product market fit. And as long as we see kind of improvements for their particular customer, what we're starting to see is as they've integrated piece of these quantum technologies into these hybrid solutions, we're able to get some very interesting stories of where they've been successful. Yeah, I'll stop there, but I think we do have another. Do we have any other questions on any other pieces of CDL?
Yeah, there's a question from Parisa. Thank you for his presentation. Have you seen application of quantum computing in environmental modeling?
We actually have. Sam, if that's okay, if I can answer this
Yeah,
one.
no, you go for it. You take this one.
Yeah, so there was a company that went through the program, and what they actually had done is they were very interested in the world of carbon capture, and the way that they could optimize the chemistry processes for converting carbon in the air and converting that actually into usable forms or potentially even energy. So they were actually taking a more quantum simulation and quantum chemistry play, and actually looking at the ways that they could reduce the research and development times of typical carbon capture technology, which is a very difficult problem.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, so Sam, thanks also for the link here on chat. So that may be also very helpful. I have one more question because yeah, we can see that the deadline for application in this second wave, I guess, is 23rd of May. And then the bootcamp will be from July to August, so there are just a couple of weeks. So what, how exactly this qualification procedure look like? So I believe that there might be some online meetings with people from CDL. Is this correct? How such meetings or talks look like, and what the candidates should expect?
Sure. So for that, you mean the actual the interview process, the application process, things along those lines?
Yes, yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So I could start off a little bit, and then maybe Jake, you could build on some of the sort of technical questions that we do ask. So we start off with the general application, and this is sort of for screening purposes, and you're gonna be asked some general questions about your background, as well as in order to be you'll be asked questions about different technical elements, whether it's a theoretical or a computational assessment. Once you make it past that screening, then you go on to 3 different interviews. So 2 of them would be with non-technical people, so CDL staff, and those would be mostly about behavioral questions, things along those lines, and about your general background. And then there'd be a final interview, which would be with either a scientist or a former entrepreneur that went through CDL, and that would be on a more technical substance as far as your background, or if you're applying with a company on what it is that your company is actually looking to provide. And once you get through all those, then you'd be admitted to the program. Jake, did I miss anything there?
I think yeah, that covers it. I think the last piece is once the boot camp goes through. So this is a 1 month period. At the very end of the boot camp, this is where you can, again, through the boot camp, you can experiment with your idea. It's a bit of a sandbox for testing out teammates or really kind of going farther with where you were thinking about it. And then at the very end, there is a process where you kind of submit a business and technical proposal of your kind of finalized roadmap of where you want to go with this idea, and that is the final kind of barrier before getting into the full mentorship program.
Mm-hmm. Great, fantastic. So since people can also apply individually, I believe that there have to be some kind of matchmaking or networking event at the beginning. Is this correct?
Yep. Yeah, I can talk a little bit more about that if you'd like.
Yeah. All right. So this time everything will be in the online form, of course, but yeah, that's good that you also organize something like this. Yeah, that looks very nice. All right. Are there any more questions from our participants? I don't see more questions on our chat. So Sam, Jake, would you like to add anything else? Just to summarize, maybe.
I guess what I would say is just if you're interested, and even if you think you're too early, but you're interested in maybe exploring quantum commercialization, even then, would happy to have you fill out an interest form. Happy to have a conversation. So just maybe my what I'd finish on is to not necessarily exclude it from the realm of possibility to explore this topic, and that would be really all that I would leave it on. Once again, really appreciate everyone taking the time. I know it's the evening there, so very much appreciate it even more so. That's really where I'd like to leave it, though. Thank you very much, and hopefully we'll be in touch with some of you after this.
Great, thank you very much, Sam. Thank you, Jake. Maybe I would just send one more time a link to the Google form. So if someone is interested, someone from the participants is interested in obtaining a certificate of attendance, then please fill in the form. So Przemek will just prepare the certificates for you. And I would just maybe stop recording, or before stopping recording, I would just share my slides once again, just to
sure,
invite you to our next meeting. Yes, because our next event, next Warsaw Quantum Computing Group meeting, will be on next Monday. Professor Ahmed Younes from Alexandria Quantum Computing Group will give a lecture, so we'll announce it soon. So stay tuned, and let's stay in touch. Feel free to just join our social media groups, follow our profiles, fan pages, YouTube channel. So as I said, this time the recording will be available only to the people who registered. But yeah, for the next meeting, it will be available just publicly on our YouTube channel. We would like to thank once again to our strategic partners and honorary partners for supporting us, and thank you, Sam, Jake, once again for introducing us the CDL program. I hope that there will be some applications from Poland this year. I know, and you also presented that the bait company from Krakow was one of the participants 2 years ago. I guess that Board Technology was another startup from Poland. So I hope that there will be also some application from Poland this year as well. Yeah, so I think we can stop now. So I will just stop recording.